All right, next we're going to move on to Chapter 3. And Chapter 3 talks about parallel and perpendicular lines. The first section of Chapter 3 we're going to break out into two different videos. The first video we're just going to talk about the different types of lines and planes that we can have and going over an example. And then the second video we're going to talk about the relationship that's formed when two or more lines are intersected by the same line. All right, so the first thing that we will discuss are parallel and skew lines. Now you'll see parallel and skew lines are similar, but there's one major difference between the two that you have to remember. All right, so the first thing, parallel lines are coplanar lines. So remember, coplanar means that they fall or lie in the same plane. So in order for lines to be parallel, they must be on the same plane. And then the main thing that you need to remember, parallel lines never intersect. They do not intersect. All right, so parallel lines are coplanar lines that do not intersect. And the symbol that we use is this symbol here, which means that in this case, line AE is parallel to line BF. All right, so if we were to highlight these two lines here, so line AE, that's this line here, and line BF, that's this line here. Those two are parallel to each other because they fall or they are coplanar. Right? If we were to imagine this drawing here as an actual box that we have, these two lie on the same box, so they're lying on the same plane. And then they're on the outside edges of the box, so they will never touch, they will never intersect, but they are coplanar. So those two lines are parallel. All right, the next thing are skew lines. Now, skew lines are similar to parallel because they also never intersect. So skew lines will never intersect either. But the major difference between the two is skew lines are non-coplanar. So it means that they cannot fall on the same plane. So parallel and skew lines are similar because they neither one intersect, but parallel, they have to be on the same plane or they must be coplanar. And skew lines, they do not fall on the same plane or they are non-coplanar. All right, so let's go through the example they have here. They said line AB and line CG are skew. So line AB is this line here, and line CG is this line here. All right, so they will never touch either. So if we imagine that this is a box, this is the front edge and this is the back right edge, they'll never touch. We can never touch those edges of the box unless we crumble it together. So they'll never touch. That's why they're skew. But they also are not part of the same plane. All right, because this line line AB is part of the plane that's the front of the box, and then this line CG is part of the plane that's the side of the box. So they're part of separate planes, so they will never touch, but they're non-coplanar, so that's why they are not parallel. And then the last one are parallel planes. Now parallel planes, same thing when you think about parallel, they do not intersect, but now since we're dealing with planes, we're talking about planes that do not intersect. So we use the exact same symbol that we do for parallel lines. So now we would just read this, that plane ABCD, so plane ABCD, that will be the top of the box, is parallel to plane EFGH, that's the bottom of the box. All right, so those two planes will never ever touch, they'll never intersect because the one's at the top, the other's at the bottom. All right, but now we're just talking about parallel planes. All right, that's all for going over the different types of terminology. Now we're going to go through an example. All right, so we're given a problem in the figure, so this figure over here. Assume that the lines and planes that appear to be parallel are parallel. So we're assuming that they are parallel. And then we're asked to answer some of these questions. All right, so let's go through these. We're asked which segments are parallel to segment AB. So first, let's highlight the segment that they want us to focus on. That's segment AB here. So they're saying which segments are parallel to that. So remember, parallel lines or segments must fall on the same plane. So here we can say that segment CD is parallel to it because they're lying on the same plane that we would have at the top of the box. So one of the segments that we can say are parallel are segment CD. And then another segment that we can say is parallel to it is now this segment AB is also part of the side of the box here. So then another segment that it will never touch is this bottom part of the side. So it will never ever intersect with segment EF either. So then another segment that we can say is parallel to is segment EF. All right, and then there's one more that you might not notice. So another plane that we can have here is if we were to draw or cut through diagonally through this box, where if we cut through the top part here and we cut through the bottom. So we take a slice through diagonally through this box, all right, and it will look something like this. All right, so see here, we took a slice out of diagonally through this box, and that is a plane. We can do that. All right, so there's another plane that we have. So now another segment that we can say is parallel to AB because it falls on the same plane is segment GH. All right, so that is another one that is parallel because these two we can then redraw or cut a new plane in that shows that these two segments are coplanar. So we cut that diagonal plane through our box. All right, so those are the three segments that are parallel to segment AB. Now question B says which segments are skewed to segment CD. So first thing we want to do is highlight segment CD. All right, and now remember, skew lines are not coplanar. So that means they cannot fall in the same plane. So we cannot say that segment AB is skewed because that falls on the same plane. We cannot say that segment GH is skewed because that falls on the same plane. And we cannot say that segment EF is skew because that also falls on the same plane. All right, and remember, skew cannot intersect either. So any segment that intersects or touches CD, we also cannot say. So we cannot say this segment AD because they are intersecting. We cannot say this segment BC because they are intersecting. We cannot say this segment GC because they are intersecting. And we cannot say this segment DH or HD because they are intersecting. So then the only lines that are left that we can say are skew that do not intersect and are not coplanar is we have this segment here, BF. So we can say segment BF because they will never touch. It's this back left corner of the box and this is top right. So they will never ever touch or intersect and are not part of the same plane. We can say that this segment here, AE, that's the front left of the box, that's the top right, they'll never touch and are not part of the same plane because these lines or segments are going up while this one's laying flat. So then the next one we can say is segment AE. All right, another one that we can say is this segment here, EH, because EH is not part of the same plane and they will never intersect as well. So we can say segment EH. And then the last one that we can say is this one in the back, where we can say segment FG will also never intersect with it and they are not coplanar. So segment FG. All right, so when you're going through these, the first thing you might want to do is eliminate the ones that are first coplanar because they cannot be coplanar, and then eliminate the ones that are intersecting it. And then the segments that are left are the ones that have to be skew because they need to be never intersecting and not in the same plane. All right, question C says, what are two pairs of parallel planes? So remember, parallel planes will never ever intersect or never touch. So the two pairs that we can have here, there's a few, but we can say the top of the box is parallel with the bottom of the box. All right, and the way that we would name that top part is we can say plane ABCD. You can name it with the 4 letters, or we can just say plane ABC because that's all that we need to talk about to name a plane. And once we say ABC, we know we have to be talking about this top part. So you can say plane ABCD is parallel, and then we said it was parallel to the bottom of the box. So we can say plane EFGH, or you could have said EFG. And then the other parts of this that we can say planes that are parallel are the sides of the box. We can say that this side of the box is parallel, will never touch or intersect with this side of the box, or we could have said the back and the front, either one. But then the way that we'll name this, we're going to name this with 3 letters this time, so we can then say plane ABF is parallel. And since I named that one with 3 letters, I should stay consistent and name this one with 3 letters as well. And I don't need the 4th one because once we say that plane, we have to be talking about this side of the box. And then the last one, we can just say plane DCG. All right, so that is 2 planes that are parallel with each other. And then we're on to the last question. All right, and then the last question says, what are 2 segments parallel to plane BCGF? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to highlight plane BCGF. All right, and now if we read this question again, it says, what are 2 segments that are parallel to the plane? So now we're talking about segments that are parallel to the plane. So remember, when we talk about parallel segments or parallel lines, they need to lie in the same plane. But now we're talking about segments that are parallel to a plane. So one of the ways that you can do this is you can think about a segment can be parallel to the plane if a segment is parallel to a segment within the plane. So one of the answers that we can give for this is we can say segment AD, let me highlight it in a different color, segment AD, draw that in black or red, segment AD we can say is parallel to plane BCGF because segment AD is parallel to segment BC and BC lies within that plane. So we can then say segment AD is a segment that's parallel to plane BCGF. And then another answer that we can give is we can say segment DH is parallel to plane BCGF because segment DH is parallel to segment CG and segment CG falls within that plane. So the other answer we can give is segment DH. All right, there are a couple more that we could have given as well, but it only asks for 2. All right, and that's it for this video. Then there's one more video and then we're done with section 1.